Welcome to the Healing Our Relationships podcast. Whether you know the C word codependency and feel ready for this journey, or the word itself makes you recoil from it like a hot flame, I promise this podcast will surprise you, inspire you, hold you, and give you life-changing tools for healing and transformation. If you've spent years abandoning yourself, shape-shifting for others, staying walled off or emotionally unavailable, or repeating painful relationship patterns, this is your invitation back to the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. I'm Marisa, Insight Timer meditation teacher, author, and transformation guide. Join me each week as we journey within. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Laur, a feminine embodiment teacher, retreat leader, and founder of the WildWoman Experience. For more than 20 years, Laura has guided women in reconnecting with their bodies, nervous systems, and authentic selves through embodiment practices, breathwork, nervous system support, and sacred feminine spirituality. She is also the creator of Sacred Body, Return to Self, a 9-month journey designed to help women move from stress, overfunctioning, and self-abandonment into deeper self-trust, aliveness, pleasure, and connection. I'm so excited to have her today to explore what it truly means to come home to ourselves. No matter your gender, no matter how you identify, there is wisdom in all of the energies, the divine feminine, masculine, and everything in between. I invite you to receive anything here that will support you on your journey from codependency to authenticity. So we just did a little grounding, and I'm here with Laur, and I'm so excited and so grateful to have this amazing woman here with us, someone that I have just revered and looked up to ever since I first met you. And now I get to be one of your students and be in a program with you, which has just been life-changing, called Sacred Body. And so welcome to the Healing Our Relationships podcast. And thank you for being here.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored to be here. I'm so happy that you are doing this work in the world, Marisa, and sharing this love and wisdom and helping so many people to come back to themselves.
Thank you. It's been beautiful. And us coming together and doing this work, I've been prepping the listeners too for this episode. I've given a little teasers. Can't wait for Laur to be on the show to talk about embodiment, because, you know, healing codependency is a long journey of head to heart to spirit to body. And my journey in codependency has been going on, recovery has been going on for a while, but when your work entered into my life, it was at the perfect time where I was really understanding how it had been held in my body for so long. And so I'm excited to talk about that today. But first, would you share a little bit about you to our listeners?
Yes. Well, I've been on this path for a long time, for about 20 years, and the work that I do now with women has very much to do with helping women to recover from burnout and exhaustion and overwhelm and overriding their own needs, self-abandonment, and to really be able to come back into our bodies, being able to stay exquisitely present with herself, being able to feel what's arising, what's alive within her without being terrified that it's going to kill her, that's going to like totally overwhelm her, being able to be with whatever difficult or uncomfortable emotions are arising, and to also to come to soften and relax and open and reconnect all the pleasure pathways in our bodies, and to be able to both, it's like a both and of there's the it's hard at first to stay with yourself when uncomfortable stuff is arising. But then the more you learn how to do that and practice that with support and in community, to start to reconnect neural pathways from your mind to every part of your body, so that you can feel yourself again, and so that you can feel alive again, and so you can feel pleasure again, and so that you can start to direct and channel pleasure through your body, and ultimately to start being able to use pleasure for healing. Because the energy of pleasure actually metabolizes the old stuck stuff from the past way easier and with way more fun. And I'm not even talking about pleasure with a partner yet. I'm just talking about within yourself,
Yeah.
learning how to activate pleasure within your own body and move the energy of pleasure within your own body for whatever you want to use it for. If it's just for, feeling relaxed and happy and grateful and in awe of creation that day, or if it's wanting to use that energy specifically to dissolve resistance that you're having about something, or to use that energy to heal something that's been in your experience for probably decades. So there's like lots of different applications of the work, but it's always about coming back to yourself, being grounded in yourself, being centered in yourself, being able to be a stand, to know what you're a yes for and what you're a no for, and to be able to articulate your boundaries to someone so that you're becoming healthier and happier and more alive and able to create healthier and happier relationships.
It all sounds so amazing. And I know for people who are new to this type of work or can't even fathom what it's like to live from that place or hasn't really experienced embodiment. I didn't even know I wasn't embodied. Like I
Mhm.
thought I was embodied. And what's interesting is if you have the opportunity to meet Laura, when you see her and you meet her, your energy in essence is everything you're talking. It's like it's strength and softness. It's this luscious, warm, and it's your energy is so beautiful that it would be really easy for someone to say, "Oh, she's always been like this. This just must be like the natural essence of who she is." And I think like naming that is so important because a lot of times we listen to these podcasts, we listen to people, and we put them on this like pedestal or compare ourselves. Oh, they must be different or better. Or they didn't have trauma or they,
Mhm.
haven't done the inner work or, living in light. And that is definitely not your story. And in fact, when I went onto your website to read about your program, Sacred Body, that I ended up signing up for, there was a picture of you on there with a shaved head. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and not that having a shaved head doesn't mean that you can't be all of your things, but it wasn't just the picture. It was your body language. It was like the essence and energy of
Mhm.
who you were, where it was so much different. And so I was wondering if you could, before we get into all of the practices and tools and more about the work that you share, could you share a little bit about your journey into this work? Because you've done a lot of inner work before coming to this place of sharing it with people.
Yeah. Yeah, so it made me laugh and smile when you said it seems like this is just your natural essence. And I feel like that's the truth. It is my natural essence, and it's not how I lived for a very long time. I grew up in a very creative environment. I grew up in professional theater, but my mom was alcoholic and mentally ill. My dad was workaholic and very absent. And I saw how sort of out of control my mom was and how scary that was for me as a child. And there was a lot of trauma that happened around that through her alcoholism and her mental illness. And so I think as a very little girl, and where meanwhile, at the same time, my dad was very successful and very driven and very responsible. And I was much closer to my dad. I was a daddy's girl. And I think at a very unconscious level, very, very young, some part of me was like, I'm never going to be like my mom. I'm not going to be out of control. I'm not going to be crazy. I'm not going to be like that. And I unconsciously said, I'm going to be like my dad. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be responsible. And of course, as a young child, none of that's conscious, but it was just self-preservation. I could see that my mom's way was not working for her too well. And so I became very masculine in a lot of ways in the way I held my body and the way that I bossed people around and the way that I was very penetrative in my how my energy moved forward into a room or into a conversation, how I took charge and took control of things, and and became a workaholic myself, very much so through um, putting myself through college, and then in my 30s becoming a single mom and a business owner at the same time. I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked until in my mid 40s, where I was so tense in my body that I had inflammation and pain in my body all the time. And I was so like burn out basically from working all the time and being on screens till 1 o'clock in the morning, trying to get that last email done before I went to bed, to get up early the next morning to get my kid up for school. And so I was so like physically tense and exhausted and anxious and just fried inside my nervous system by my mid 40s that my body collapsed on me. Like adrenal fatigue hit hard. And I was pretty much on the floor for about 3 months where I could not do much at all. And I was already 10 years into personal growth work at that point. I was, doing breath work and a lot of inner child healing and trauma healing work with people for the first 10 years of my career. And I loved that work, but it's very intense work, and but what I know now about it is that it wasn't really the work that I was doing that was hurting me. It was the way that I was doing the work that I was hurting myself with by by overriding my body's need for rest and pushing myself too hard and too far all the time and being in my head a lot, being in constant analysis and not knowing how to be soft and relaxed in my body, not knowing how to be connected to my womb and to my roots to the earth and things like that. So yeah, I existed in my masculine and in overdrive and workaholism, tension and anxiety for a very long time. And it was through my body knocking me down and saying, girl, you can't live that way anymore, that I started, I mean, I just realized like I cannot go on this way. I've got to figure out another way of existing. And once you finally surrender that hard and become open enough, then the teachers start appearing, right? And then I started to learn about feminine embodiment and nervous system regulation and how to exist within myself in a very different way. And it became my passion. And I started learning and integrating and then teaching other women because then I could suddenly see it everywhere around me. I could see how many women in our culture are just utterly exhausted and overwhelmed and stressed out and anxious, and that their nervous systems are running on empty. And so it became a real passion to start sharing this work with women about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really amazing because I have very similar to you. And I think a lot of the listeners, whether you're brand new and you're just beginning this journey, and this sounds like so far down the road or not, what I love about being able to share this medicine is to give you the tools I didn't have sooner.
Mm.
Because the first 10 years of my recovery and sobriety was all moving from head to heart with Toltec path and unlearning beliefs and agreements, and it was getting rid of all those voices of self-hate and the shame and the guilt that came with my codependency and the fear of I lived in fear constantly of what other people thought of me, and unlearning that took such a long time. Same thing, it was like later down the road when I realized I was still not only still codependent, but then I started to do that healing work and realized it lived in my body, that my body wasn't in its authentic state, that my body wasn't relaxed. And it's kind of this weird like catch 22 because you begin to believe in yourself and love yourself and get confident and do your work in the world and share with people, and you start to feel better about your life. So you start working harder. And you teach us
Mm.
this in our class about working from masculine energy and from feminine, and the difference in the way it looks. And especially women who are very, very creative or have neurodivergence, or that energy of creativity and excitement is the same energy of force sometimes. So it's like hard to
Mhm.
tell the in between. But I came to you inside of your container because I was in my creativity, I was in my authenticity, I'm doing my thing, but my body was revving at this place of fear and scarcity. And I wasn't totally disconnected to my body when I came to you. I was actually in the process of embodiment already. And what I didn't realize was getting deeper into that was going to come with some discomfort of like, really, you don't only get to feel the good things, but you're also feeling what felt to me like lifetimes of grief was coming out of me, and I was crying. And a lot of women my age are like, oh, it's perimenopause, and I do think there's a part of that, but I also think, especially for those of us that do inner work, when you get into your mid 40s, if you've been doing this for a minute, your body is probably ready at that point too, to like, you're more surrendered, you're coming into yourself more, hopefully.
Mhm.
Not everyone has that age timeline, but I just find it, I just find that no matter where we are or where you're beginning, the tools that you have to offer, if you have them sooner on, even if you feel like it's impossible to do, just the awareness and the tiny little practices that you have given us, like leaning back in our energy, which I'll have you talk about at some point, but that has transformed the way that I show up and
Mhm.
how I feel in my body. And I know how I feel in my body. And codependency is a lot of it is fight, flight, freeze activations. And it's that hijacking that happens and takes over us. And then we're reactive. And a lot of what you teach is not only awareness, because awareness is amazing, but then what do we do after? How do we tend to our body after? And it's not all just like put your root into the earth and breathe. It's like you're like, do a plank, tap this part of your body. I'm like, do a plank. That's a great idea. Next time I'm like super pissed off or I'm in flight. And I've done a plank and I'm like, God, this feels so good. I'm here with myself. Like you said, I think we try to talk about that a lot here. It's about staying with yourself at all times and not just trying to calm yourself down or be in one part of your energy. But you teach this a lot. It's the balance of the spectrum of the masculine and feminine.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's sort of like layers of skills, because until you know how to stay with the uncomfortable feelings, then we're going to keep trying to find ways to get away from the uncomfortable feelings. And so we're going to keep going back into our old habits of, let me focus on what the other person needs, or let me eat something, or let me, scroll on my phone, or, there's a million ways that we leave ourselves because the intensity of the uncomfortable feelings that come up when we either we're upset about what somebody said to us, or they're upset with us about something, and we're afraid of losing connection. We're afraid. That's what nervous system is basically all about, is that it's afraid that we're going to be abandoned, or we're going to be hurt in one way or another. The fear of aloneness is so deep in our nervous system, because our brains haven't evolved that much since thousands of years ago, when we were in caveman and cavewoman times, where to be alone meant certain death. Like, you needed your tribe to survive the elements and the saber-toothed tigers and the neighboring tribe, whatever. The amount of true physical danger was immense for so long, that you needed each other in order to survive. And we knew at a core survival level that to be alone meant certain death. It meant, like, you might survive a day or two, right? But the number of dangers were so immense. And so that still lives in our nervous system thousands of years later, because our brains and our nervous systems haven't evolved that much. And so now, as contemporary adults, when we have an upset in relationship, our nervous system thinks, I'm about to die,
Yeah.
or like the intensity of the fear of, I'm gonna die if this relationship has a breach in it. And so we do so many behaviors to try to manage that just because we're afraid to feel the feelings, because nothing in our grade school or high school or college taught us how to feel feelings, how to stay present with ourselves through uncomfortableness. And so that's really, the first step is being able to be with uncomfortable feelings. And then there's all the other, physiological tools that I've been teaching you all about that that there are ways that we can think our nervous system into a regulated state, and it's generally harder to think yourself into a regulated state. Generally, the nervous system needs physiological tools in order to move energy away from the center of the body where the intensity of feelings is happening. And so that's why, I teach you things like plank because it engages the arms and legs and core muscles of your body, which are designed to move energy away from your center.
Yeah. In the workbook, one of the most powerful things I think that awareness has, like when we understand why we do something or where it comes from, or even when we hear you share what you just did about how we were literally surviving for so many centuries, like
Mhm.
that awareness can do something to your brain where it helps you understand it, like invites compassion or a shift of perception. And I have found in recovery for me personally, that has been so transformative to allow for me to be available for the tool that comes after. And when you're talking about what you're sharing and you're saying in the, like, let's say in the beginning, where it really does feel like death, it feels like life or death. You're not getting a text back and it's like a spiral. When you have awareness, especially if it's compassionate awareness, you have this moment, I call it a sacred pause in the book, that you suddenly realize, oh man, okay, I'm sitting here spinning out in fight or flight because I think I did something wrong or I said the wrong thing. What do you think are the beginner tools, the beginner tools when you're learning how to stay with uncomfortable feelings? If you've been avoiding them your whole life, how did you start, and or what did you teach, but like how did you start being with uncomfortable feelings?
Mm, yeah, it's such a good question. I am really blessed that I found teachers that taught me how to do it, and some of the tools come from mindfulness practices, and some of the tools come more from tantric practices. And the very first tool, I call it notice, and some teachers call it witness. After you realize that you're spinning out about the text and that you're in fight or flight because you're worried that you said something wrong or they're going to take it the wrong way, that's your moment of awareness, right? You're saying, okay, I've realized that I'm spinning out. And then to take that sacred pause and close your eyes for a moment and look inside your facial muscles and your throat and your heart and the center of your body. That's where a lot of it usually hangs out, is either around the jaw, the shoulders, the neck, the throat, the heart, and right in the center of your body, like your belly, your solar plexus area, and just notice the physical sensations that are going on. That's the very beginning. Until you can just see what's going on there, the mind is going to keep making up distractions to try to not notice, to not be present, to not see what's going on within yourself. And that's the first step, is being able to notice yourself, notice the sensations. Well, and here's the differentiation that I want to make here is notice what's going on physically in the center of your body, which is different than noticing your thoughts, your
Yeah.
racing thoughts about it.
Yeah, you had, so I met Laura when I was doing SHIP, which is a 12-week training that if you've listened to the episode with Star Wolf, you've all heard me start sharing a little bit about shamanic breath work. And Laura was teaching family of origin. I booked a couple sessions with you after that when this was before I hit my bottom in codependency, before I really had that word floating around my life or my reality. I was really struggling with fight or flight inside of my relationship. And when I booked a session with you, you were the first person that I had done somatic breathing where I wasn't avoiding the feeling or using thought process to get my way out of it, but you actually had me breathing into it and you were asking me to describe it. And you were
Mhm.
saying, what does it look like? And where is it sitting? And what happens if you, like, you were guiding me into it,
Hmm.
which is the last thing that anybody would think to do in that
Yeah.
situation. And what you just said right now, this is what I've thought fascinating. There's this amazing author, Dr. David Hawkins, and I learned this process in his book later, but I realized you had already taught it to me, and you've never read his book, and so it felt like a universal truth, because he was saying that as soon as you start feeling fear or anxiety or fight or flight, you go into your body and you find the feeling.
Hmm.
The story is the fuel. So if you feel a little bit of anxiety and then you're in your head about it,
It'll
you're
make all the symptoms amplify.
amplify
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
times 10, because
Uh-huh.
now you're like making up stories of what could happen. You're making a lot of assumptions.
Mhm.
You're you're completely fueling it.
And the tricksy part is that you're trying to practice going within and witnessing what's happening in there. The mind is going to keep trying to pull you into the stories. And you haven't failed when that happens. It's just that's what the mind tries to do because the mind thinks that feeling that would kill you, the ego mind, and the ego doesn't want you to die. Its job is to keep you alive. And so it keeps trying to pull you away from feeling the actual feelings in your body again is just a self-preservation. It thinks it would kill you to feel. It's wrong about that, but it thinks that it would kill you to feel it. And so each time you notice, oh, I'm in the stories again, just come back to your body. Come back to what's happening inside your body.
Yeah. I have actually, I'll put it with this. I have a meditation for fear and anxiety where I just breathe more room into it. And
Hmm.
I was using the tools that you taught me. Find it in the body. Where is it sitting? What's the color? What's the
Hmm.
texture? And for my brain, when I use imagery and get into the story of the feeling, then my brain has something to do and latch onto. So it helps it kind of, when you ask it those extra questions, like, where is it? Or what does it look like? It kind of helps me stay a little bit out of that. Oh, I'm in danger. I need to do something about it. And we've
Hmm.
convinced ourselves that thinking and obsessing and ruminating is doing something about it. So it is a really beautiful first practice. And the witness or the compassionate observer, just inviting a more loving energy, which, we're so obsessed with being in relationship with other people or good enough for other people, or what do other people think about us? And I think a lot of people, men, women, all people, we're just tired of that. Like, we're just tired of that. Younger generations have a lot more, there's more freedom for them a little bit than maybe in ours. But I think that there's this part of us that's like ready to return to these places. And even though
Hmm.
it is hard, and it is painful, but the rewards happen very quickly. I mean, we were just on a retreat in Mexico. There's how many of us are in your cohort?
There were 12 of us in Mexico. There's 12 of us.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
want to talk about this because I thought it was so fascinating to watch. Not very many of, like, we all came into this experience not really knowing exactly what we were going to do. I think it's like you read a website, you see yourself in it. I need that. You have a great question of, what would happen if you didn't say yes to this? Could you keep going on the way you were going? And I don't think any of us could. And watching everybody come in, not really knowing, I think maybe two of the gals knew each other, but we don't all know each other. We're from all different parts of the US, and we're all very different. How we walked in that day and then how we left, I thought we were there for 3 months. I mean, it was amazing. And what was really incredible about it is that you create space that teaches. So
Hmm.
the space teaches, the energy teaches. It's not just, hey, let's all sit around and listen to us lecture. I think that is what's so powerful about healing in the divine feminine, healing in sacred circle, is there is an energy that happens when we're all together. There's this activation and a remembering of how badass and divine and magical we are, and how we all have this similar in our body, bones, and blood suppression and repression of our power and our gifts and our authority and our sexuality. I mean, I found myself saying this to my partner. We walked in during a class, and I think you said, and breathe into your breasts. And no one's ever told me to breathe into my breasts before. And the tiny little side note will be growing up in religion, lots of shame around religion, around
Hmm.
body, sex, etc. So my nervous system will still get a little bit uncomfortable if I say breasts out loud. Like I just noticed that in my body, right?
Yeah.
So he came, he was like, "What are you guys doing in there?" And I was like, "It's not sexual." Like I kept telling him it wasn't sexual. And then I was like, wait a minute, so much of what you taught us was a reclamation of our sexuality, of our sexual energy, which is not just for fornicating and making babies, but for creation and for
Yes.
life force.
Yes.
And when I heard myself say that out loud, I realized like this is how messed up it is that most men will watch porn or sexualize women or think somebody's hot or whatever, right? And it's like from the outside, sexualizing us is no big deal, but God forbid we sexualize ourselves. God
Except
forbid
that
we,
we do all the time. I mean, we're so trained by everyone in our culture is trained to sexualize women.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the difference, I think, and maybe there's another word for it you can speak to, but the way that you teach us to connect to our sexuality, to our what do you call it?
Your sensuality,
Yes, our
your life
sensuality.
force,
Yes.
your Shakti.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in its own world. I get goosebumps thinking about it because it's not what the patriarchy has deemed sexual. Like I don't even how would you
Mhm.
explain that? Like the difference.
It's so both and because I mean, first of all, I just want to say that there is nothing on planet Earth that is not sexual. Absolutely everything that is here because of sexuality. And every, just I'm looking outside at all the green plant, all the trees and bushes and everything that's just like flowering and leafing like crazy right now here in the spring and Midwest. Creation is happening all the time, all around us, in us, through us, as us. But we live in a culture where for the last 5 or 6 thousand years, the whole idea of sex and sexuality in women's bodies has been shamed and controlled and distorted and monetized and traumatized in so many different ways. So it's very complex the way the idea of sexuality or women's sexuality or sensuality or life force, all of that is very convoluted in our Western minds. And what I'm teaching women is how to be in like ecstatic, loving existence inside of your own body, to be really deeply connected to every part of your body, not just your breasts, but every part of your body through breath, through sending your mind, your imagination into every part of your body. And that has the effect of gradually bringing more aliveness online for women because most people are walking around, women and men walking around very disconnected from most parts of their bodies. Like we feel things with the surface of our hands or we feel things with the bottoms of our feet against the floor. But that's about it. Most people are not walking around planet Earth deeply connected to all of their bodies. And there's just so much more joy and aliveness and fun and connection possible when you're home, when you're here in your body and connected and alive. And there's so much more for the feminine, so much more of her intuition comes online. The more embodied she is, the more access she has to her intuition because the feminine body, every surface, every aspect of the feminine body is a receptor site, is like receptive to information happening around us in the universe. And the more shut down we are, the more numb we are, the more tense we are, the more compressed in our heads we are, then the less access we have to the magic and the information and the aliveness that's happening within us and around us at all times.
Yeah, it's hard for me to conceptualize it, to speak about it sometimes, to tell people about it. And at the same time, it is what happens when we feel safe enough to
Yeah.
be there.
Hmm.
And very rarely do we feel safe enough. I've been doing a lot of stuff for a long time in shamanic breath work, and there were things that I had never talked about or explored or asked about, and especially with people who we could just say were strangers at first.
Hmm.
But the container that you create If you don't know what container means, because not
Mhm.
everybody's in that world, how would you explain container actually?
Okay, that's such a great question.
Yeah,
So let's just go with the idea of a room at first. When women come into a room to be in a women's circle together, you could say that the room itself is a container. It's a gathering place and that physical structure. But then there's the energetics of the space that everyone can feel whether they have language for what they're feeling or not. You can walk into a room. Most women, any woman I've ever met, can walk into a room and can feel if everybody's tense in the room or if one person is tense in the room, right?
yeah,
Or, that's the atmosphere in the room. And women are very attuned to that kind of thing. And so when you're, in this world of personal development, when we talk about container, we're talking about the energetic environment that we create to help people feel safe, to be able to share all kinds of stuff that they've never talked about before, and to feel all kinds of uncomfortable things, and to be witnessed by each other, to be vulnerable. And that's such a key part of this work that I've discovered is just that women heal better in community. We
absolutely.
deeply need each other to share stories and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you feel that way too. I've felt that way all my life, and I've never heard anybody talk about that before. And the vulnerability, the witnessing of each other, the holding each other in love and reverence when someone's being vulnerable and sharing something deep and beautiful, to hold sacred space for that. It's healing not only for the person who's sharing, but for every woman in the room that's getting to witness and hold that loving space. It's
Yeah.
really like a real deep, I would say, calling and soul purpose for me is to create safe, loving spaces for women to gather and do really deep, transformative work together.
You do an amazing, amazing job at it. And
Mhm.
I don't remember what the initial question was, and it doesn't really matter.
Either. Well, we were talking about
Um,
container. Okay, let's trace this back. We were talking about
yeah.
container
What were we
and
talking?
women being together, doing this work
But
together.
I think you kind of just spoke to maybe what
Mhm.
I even wanted to share was that growing up in recovery at 23, I was already probably an extrovert to some degree, but growing up in meetings where people shared their feelings and talked, especially in women's meetings, from a very young age, I was already used to that type of intimacy and sharing with strangers. So it was never really a big deal to me to go into a retreat or somewhere. And it doesn't mean I didn't shame spiral after I said, or was like, what an idiot. Why didn't I say that? Or got insecure. But
Mhm.
it would just come out. Like, it wasn't, I was used to it. And I realized, especially as I started doing more one-on-one work and well, especially group work, I would have a circle every month and people would come and there'd be like 20 women there and be like, oh, does anyone want to share about what came up for them? And everybody was quiet.
Mhm.
And I realized that most of these women were probably not given an opportunity to be in sacred circle together, to share vulnerably, to learn how to hold space and just listen, and haven't heard me too. Hello, another
Mhm.
myself. Oh, that's me. Because I think we make a lot of assumptions about other people. We can create walls against people because they activate in us something that we didn't have or we didn't get to do or we don't look like that or and we just
Mhm.
assume that somebody's not struggling. I mean, I had a really bad eating disorder and I did not feel safe enough to go to the OA meetings my sponsor was asking me to go to because I knew that I was 103 pounds, even though I didn't feel like that. But I had been in spaces before where I could just sense this is fucked up for me to be talking about my eating disorder. I had so much shame and confusion around it. And so I was isolated. And I just felt
Mhm.
like I didn't even deserve to be there.
I think what you're pointing to there is that's how most people feel isolated with
Yes.
whatever it is that they're struggling with. They
Yes.
feel like no one would understand. I'm broken. I'm messed up. I'm a failure. I don't want to talk to people about this. I don't want to be a downer. I don't want to drag people down, It's not their problem. This is my problem. I need to fix this. In our culture in general, we haven't been given opportunities to be in safe spaces where we can share vulnerably and be heard and loved and accepted exactly as we are.
Right. And the apology, even sometimes I'll do, oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying, or I'm sorry. And they'll be, wait a minute, I'm not sorry because
Mhm.
we've learned to apologize for how we feel. Or every time someone cries,
Mm.
it's been really great to learn from the teachers I've had as a space holder to actually maybe not say anything and let them cry
Mhm.
or invite them. Would you like to sit with that for a minute instead of fixing? Which before I entered into the world of the divine feminine and in healing in circle, it was always, oh my gosh, you're so upset. How can I fix this with
Yeah.
a thought or a tool or hold you? And I remember being in my first circle and some woman falling apart, and another gal was going to go over there, and the facilitator put her hand back and she said, no.
Mhm.
And it wasn't because she was telling her she doesn't deserve to be held. She
Mhm.
was saying, give her the opportunity.
There's two sides to that. Like there's the one that's crying who deserves the opportunity to feel her feelings and to not be fixed, to not be shut down by people handing her Kleenexes and hugging her and things. And but also the first one who's rushing over to help, that one is uncomfortable with the fact that someone is crying. They're uncomfortable with the feelings that are coming up in themselves because someone is crying. And they were probably raised in an environment where they learned very young to not cry and to, I'll give you something to cry about or, whatever, and to tend to anyone who was crying, to try to solve it on the outside because they didn't know how to be with their own uncomfortable feelings about someone crying.
It's part of your process.
Hmm.
And when you can connect to others in such a powerful way, it really helps you connect to yourself. That said, about gathering together, can you share with our listeners about Wild Woman, your upcoming
Mm,
retreat?
yes. Wild Woman is a space where women get to put down all of the roles that they carry in life, all of the stress and all of the pressure and all of the masks and, everything that's going on in the world right now. And we gather together for days in nature, around the fire, in the water, bare feet on the earth, and sing and dance and laugh and cry and breathe and move. And it's very held by a community of women. This is our 11th year, and there are many women that come back year after year. There are many women on staff who started out as participants years ago and have come back and have become part of holding the container. And every year I get to watch women arrive exhausted, stressed out, disconnected from themselves, not knowing what they need even. And I get to watch them absolutely melt into the experience and dissolve and let go of tons of stress and remember who they are and come back to themselves. Every year, at least one person comes up to me and says, I have never felt so safe and seen and loved and accepted exactly as I am by women in my life. I'm coming back next year. And it's like, that's why I keep creating this year after year, is just the power and the beauty of women in community, holding one another in the energy of love and acceptance creates an energetic environment, like we were talking about before, a container where all kinds of stuff just drops and dissolves. And we get to be really real and really raw. And we have a lot of fun. And we're in the woods. And so it's a really, really, really beautiful space to come remember yourself, remember your power, remember your voice, remember your truth, and to bring that all back home into your life.
So beautiful. And it's in September in
September 10 through 14 this year in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's epically beautiful that time of year. We're about an hour north of Asheville. If something about what I'm talking about here resonates for you, For your listeners, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I love talking to the women that are coming in each year and getting to know them so that I know who's coming and we can really shape the whole experience specifically to the women who are coming. So please feel free to reach out if you have questions or you're curious about Wild Woman.
Yeah. And then you're in the middle of your sacred body cohort you have going right
Mhm.
now. Are you available for one-on-one work right now if
Yes,
people want to work
absolutely.
with you?
I work with women one-on-one all the time on Zoom all over the world. And Sacred Body, the next cohort will start again next year. And so if you reach out to me and you want to be on a mailing list about that, we can do that too.
Yeah, we'll make sure all of your links are there. And I really
Mhm.
do encourage one session is so transformative. And I think these big retreats can be a huge awakening. And then it's integration. And when we get
Mhm.
back and we're not on the land anymore and we're back to our lives and in our roles. And that's what I hope this conversation, like this podcast, is part of keeping you in the energy of the container
Mhm.
and then doing things like the cohort. There's so many things and offerings that Laura has and tools, and we'll put some of those in the podcast. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that you came on. We could talk for hours. I'll have you back
We
on again
could.
to like really, I'll have Laura back on again. If you're listening in and you heard something and you were like, please, I want to hear more about that, just message me, email me, and we'll make sure we can do an episode on one topic. Today, I really just wanted to get as much of your essence in what you do as possible and let people hear your beautiful, beautiful voice. And yeah, so just so grateful to have you today. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we go or?
Oh, no, it's just been so delightful to be with you. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And again, I'm so grateful that you're doing this work in the world and sharing all of these resources and tools and support and encouragement with women.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, listeners, for being on this journey with us. And reach out if you have any questions, you need support, or you just want to say hi. I think Laura and I both do connection calls. So you're not alone. We're only a click away.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. Please head to my website, healwithalchemy.com. You can pre-order my new book, Healing Our Relationships from Codependency to Authenticity, the workbook, so you can dive deeper into this work. Use the promo code podcast. There's a discount here for you as we are building the new website for the book and taking pre-orders. The book should be out on or before June 1st, but take advantage of that discount. And you can learn more about working with me one-on-one, book a free connection call, send an email, send a message, say hello. I'd love to know you. Sending so much love, and I'll see you next week.